Hi everyone, I'm Anne, and today I'm doing something completely out of my comfort zone. If you follow me for a while, you'll probably know that I usually work in black and white with ink, but I decided to try acrylic paint for a change. I made this practice piece of a blue tit. Of course, I ran into some difficulties, as usual, with the new art supply, but for a first try, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I didn't record this practice piece, but in this video I tried to replicate the bird on this wooden suitcase here. So let's get started. I made this as a newborn gift. In preparation, I've slightly sanded the surface, and before I do anything else, I burn a text into the wood. You might recognize the suitcase. I used one before when I burned a spotted deer in a previous video. At first I wanted to burn something on this one as well, but because this wood isn't that suitable for pyrography, it was this project that changed my mind to get into acrylic paint. I'll tell you more about that later on. When I burned the name, I gave the suitcase a layer of transparent gesso. I wanted the wood to stay visible, so clear gesso is the best invention ever. It prevents the paint to get soaked into the porous wood, but without covering up the whole surface with white. You don't want to burn over this stuff, that's why I did the lettering first. The gesso dried nicely transparent and I transferred the sketch onto the wood. I started painting by blocking in all the colors without going into the details yet. Since I'm new to acrylic paint, I'm not in a position to teach you how to use this medium, but I can tell you how I made this piece. It may not be the right or most efficient way, but that's how I did it. If you have any tips or tricks for me, let me know in the comments below. The nice thing about acrylic paint is that you can cover light colors over dark, and you can't do that with ink or watercolors. The first layer I put down is the dark color I see in that section on the reference. The white section on a bird's head I blocked in with a grey tone, because that shines through when I add the lighter feathers on top later on. So the initial colors I laid down are of course not the final ones I end up with. With the practice piece I remember that I struggled the most with the belly. The belly has a darker undertone and also some lighter desaturated feathers, but it mostly reads as yellow. I couldn't get those gradients quite right in my initial piece. It's a good thing I practiced it before, because then I knew what kind of problems I would run into and what I wanted to do differently next time. I have to say that although the second time wasn't easy either, I saw improvement. In this stage you can't see that yet in the video, but I learned a lot and this one turned out way more smooth in comparison with the first one. There are a few elements I like better in my practice piece, but overall I think this one on the suitcase is more realistic. I can't say one is better than the other, because it depends on which style you like better. The practice piece has a more painterly look, and that's okay, it's not gonna be viewed side to side and it's handmade. With each layer I refine things and add more details, and with each layer it looks a bit more like the reference photo. I keep working on different areas to let the layers dry in between. In the first painting on grey paper, although I used my smallest paintbrush, I struggled with making those incredible fine lines. After some research on YouTube, I discovered that you just need to thin your paint a bit for finer lines. And indeed, that worked way better the second time. So now I was able to make those really delicate feathers on the head and also on the belly later on. In my first painting I really like the branch the bird is sitting on. In this second one I really like how the head turned out. That smooth gradient with the delicate fine feathers, I just love it. It's funny how you really like a certain part of something you've made and just can't stop looking at it. I never thought I would get into acrylic paint. I have a watercolor set for over a year now and I never had the courage to start using it. That's a bit weird because I already paint with ink and that's very similar to watercolors. Initially I wanted to burn something, but I was struggling with the design to go on this suitcase. Because I had to put the text on the front, the design of the animal became a bit too small to burn for this type of wood, or else you lose all the details. So I spontaneously suggested painting something on it instead of burning it. But then I suddenly thought, what have I done? You can't do that with watercolors, I need acrylics. But apart from the work in primary school, I have no experience with acrylic at all. I already committed using acrylic on this piece, so there was no going back. I immediately started researching and looking for paint. Fortunately, our local art store was having a sale on these paints. The brand of these paints has a new design for the tubes, so I could buy the old ones with a big discount. I already painted the belly with a light yellow color, so it might seem a bit weird that I go over this with titanium white, but that's because I want to glaze the bright yellow on top of it. With glazing you apply a translucent layer of color on top of the paint to change the color without covering up the texture underneath. With the first painting, the one on the grey paper, I didn't glaze at all because at that time I didn't figure it out yet. Glazing still needs practice, but luckily I can learn very quick. Don't be frustrated if you are learning to paint and it doesn't look the way you want. As with anything, painting takes practice and everyone learns at their own pace. Don't compare yourself to someone else in that regard. Also, everyone has their own style, but you need to understand that there might be a difference in your own art style and the style you like to see in general, if you know what I mean. I can really enjoy looking at the loose, painterly pieces of some other artists, but I tend to be more precise and realistic in my own work. Working with color is completely new for me, as I usually work in black and white, but it was less difficult than I thought it would be. Maybe my photography also plays a role, because I photograph in color. I already have experience with looking at the reference and seeing details. That makes it a lot easier to create a somewhat realistic artwork, but seeing details and being able to distinguish colors is something different. When I glazed the yellow over the belly of the blue tit, I saw it was a little bit too bright, so I went over it again with a few opaque layers and added a little bit of burnt sienna to the mix for my second glaze. Also, I lost a bit too much of that darker undertone, so I added some grey details back in with a slight hint of chromium oxide green, what I also used on the wing feathers. After that, only the branch was left. For the shadow part, I mostly used permanent Van Dyke brown with a bit marsh black here and there. Then I mixed a warm grey for the highlighted area and almost dry brushed some texture on top with adding some Naples yellow hue and titanium white to that grey mixture. The colors of the branch really can't go wrong because it doesn't have to be the same as the reference. There are so many types of branches, it could be anything the bird is sitting on. At first I thought I was ready, but the yellow belly of the bird was a bit too smooth for my liking, so I added some stray feathers for a bit extra texture. And then, when the paint has completely dried, I varnished the whole suitcase with the satin acrylic varnish from Amsterdam. And here it is. I really like the outcome of this piece, especially that I decided to continue it around the corner. It's really different from the painting that I did before, but I like it. I'll go and hang the practice piece in my studio and I can give the suitcase away. Let me know what you think of this and if you have any suggestions for our next project. I would love to hear your thoughts. Have a nice day, until next time.